Hey, I'm going to show you some of the new features in JamLaunch that should make it even easier to make and deploy multiplayer games using Godot. When you have a subdomain claimed, you'll be able to access that as a web page where the latest public default release of your project will be made available to download or run in the browser. If you enable guests for your project, people will be able to play as guests instead of having to log in to JamLaunch or have a token provisioned by you. When players are hosting games, they have more regions to choose from, so you can host games in a server in California, for example. When joining a game hosted by someone else, in addition to being able to join with join codes like before, there's a display of all the public games that are happening right now that you are able to join. And you can just join by clicking on that. So now we have these two clients running in the browser on a server that was provisioned in California. In the project configuration, there's a way to change the provisioner. If you want to run a provisioner, there is a protocol that you can implement that will let you just run your own servers if you don't want to use the JamLaunch servers. That might help you save money if you know how to do that, but the defaults are available if you don't want to have to do that yourself. There is a way of having a fallback session duration maximum. So if your game is meant to run for 30 minutes or an hour, and there's a bug where the server doesn't turn itself off, or a player stays connected too long and you don't have a mechanic for making sure it shuts off after a certain amount of time, you can have a fallback maximum set here so that you don't run you don't run a server when you don't intend to be running it. There is a way to view your active sessions now. So if you go to Sessions, Active Sessions, and then the project you're interested in, you can see any of the sessions that are running, and you can stop them if you need to. The Jam Connect node has been expanded to have a little bit more configuration. So if you want a timeout for when the server's running but no players have joined, so if people start hosting a game and then they leave, the time that the server will stick around is configurable now. You can also, instead of relying on the project fallback timeout, set a more precise maximum uptime in the Jam Connect node. If you don't want the server to shut down when all the players have left, you can toggle the shutdown when empty off. There are some cases where you might want to do that. For example, if you have a long running session that's meant to have a lot of players in a persistent session that lasts multiple days, for example. And you can also set a maximum player count so that after a certain number of players join, the authentication portion of the Godot multiplayer implementation in Jam Connect won't accept any more players. There's also an improved Jam Sync node. This includes a new editor plugin for configuration that makes it a little bit more like the native multiplayer synchronizer and multiplayer spawner nodes, which may be more familiar. Remember, if you want to enable this and you upgrade your add-on to the latest add-on, you'll need to also enable the Jam Sync Editor plugin in the project settings. if you use the previous Jam sync node, you'll notice this is mostly just a quality of life improvement. Although there are some interesting new features like interpolation support for angles and the ability to change the rate at which certain things sync. So if something doesn't need to sync every single time a synchronization is happening or a network frame is happening, you can set the interval multiplier higher. You can also change the max frames per sync to a higher number if you don't require real-time feel for the objects in your game. In the editor plugin, we have this new concept of release channels. So like I mentioned earlier, if you have a default public release, that will be the one that shows up in the subdomain that you have claimed for this project. So this project is example 44. So if we go to example44.jamlaunch.net, we can see that the release 02, which is the one on the current stable channel, which is the default channel, is the one that's available here. If over here we have this new release, release 3, we want that one to be the one that's available when people visit that project page. We can set the channel to stable, and then if we refresh the page in the browser, it's now pointing to release 3. So you don't have to worry about sharing a new URL to point to the latest version of the project. The release channels also make sure that any tag releases stick around. So if you're iterating and testing, you don't lose the stable release version. I think that pretty much covers it. So if you have any questions, just join the Discord. Let us know what you're trying to do. We'd be happy to help.